The fourth principle is control accountability. Isn't accountability about control?
Um, yeah, and so a big chunk of this work is really about putting accountability in its place. A participatory view of assessment sort of takes an argument about achievement tests that most people agree with. Everybody says that achievement tests, in the way they break knowledge down into little tiny bits, um, that's not really good for schools to think of learning in terms of mastering a bunch of tiny associations that appear on a test. And most people agree with that. But we actually take that a step further and say that the way that knowledge is represented on formal performance assessments is kind of problematic for a lot of kids. If they don't know the answer, if they don't really understand what you're asking of them, once you give them that assessment, you've pretty much lost the opportunity because you reframe the sort of the knowledge as really sort of understanding something in the abstract. So a lot of our work involves using assessments very, very carefully. So we use performance assessments, good open-ended performance assessments, but we don't really use them to assess the individuals and provide feedback the way that a lot of people do in formative assessment. We really use them to assess the curriculum. We build in all these scaffolds to make sure that by the time the kids get to the performance assessment that they can do well. But we really keep them in the background, and we use them to evaluate our success, and also teachers use them to often to assign grades. But we really put them in the background. And then the achievement tests, this gets a little controversial. A lot of people really have a huge problem with sort of external achievement tests. And we really think about them in terms of not really the problem with the test, but the way the tests are used. They really have to be isolated, but they have a very narrow but a very important function, and that is, it's really, if you want to make claims about gains on student achievement, you really have to have samples of items that are aligned to standards that have nothing to do with the curriculum. And you have to do that if you want to do any sort of comparisons with other curriculums. So we do this in different ways in different studies, but in the end, it's really about not having any interaction between the test developers and the curriculum developers and the teachers. You really want to isolate these tests and use them very carefully. If you do it right, though, it's not that hard to do. The real advantage of them is they let you see. It's the only way you can see whether you're improving from one year to the next, because when you're refining the curriculum and the reflections and performance assessments, the scores on the performance assessments will go up a lot, but that's because you're teaching to them better. So you really need to have this sort of external measure if you want to measure improvement over time, and certainly if you want to make any claims about impacting achievement on sort of NCLB type tests, and if you want to do comparison studies.